I'm impressed. We have like 9 minutes for Q&A, and I do have a number queued up, so I'll just kind of work through them.
That we don't get to today, we can reply offline and answer.
Exactly.
Is that right, Damon?
Yep, that is correct. So the first one I have that came in a while ago is, does this allow for the input of trash removed from a full capture device or collected by the Track 2 BMPs? It would be great to be able to show the trends over time and the impacts to water quality. I'm not sure who would be a good one to answer that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we've obviously got we've got a classification of full trash capture or not, but I think this question gets at whether or not, if you can track how much actual trash is coming into the BMPs, and I think that we do provide that opportunity via virtue of the field workflow. When somebody's out there in the field, they have the ability to make a measurement of how much trash was in these systems when they were cleaned out, and make a partition between trash, green waste, and sediment, when it comes to the clean out volumes. And if people are using that attribute consistently and filling it out, it would be a good way for, the actual loading rates to be improved over time, and, understanding of where we actually have hotspots and not by collecting those data. Right now, we don't have any, built-in intelligence about using those attributes to improve loading rates, but it's intended to be a consistent way of tracking it, so that in the future, when additional data become available, or when your data set becomes big enough, you would be able to do something with those attributes. So I do think that's part of the long vision, is using the actual maintenance quantities to do both loading rates, but also on other BMPs. If you know how often you're having to clean out sediment, well, that gives you the ability to then have predictive maintenance about what your intervals of clean out might be for different BMPs.
And I'll just add that in the trash module, the current visualizations that we've focused on are kind of current snapshots displayed spatially and through some kind of dashboard level statistics, but to build visualizations to show trends over time is something that I think would be a very valuable future enhancement to the platform.
Great. And then another question here is, can an agency upload BMP info and attributes via an Excel spreadsheet, or is it manual entry, one BMP at a time?
Yeah, there's sort of 3 ways to build out the BMP inventory. One at a time. You're not going to want to do that if you've got more than a couple dozen BMPs. There's a bulk uploader that takes a spreadsheet from a template to bring in BMPs en masse. If you can format your existing BMP inventory easily into that Excel spreadsheet. Alternately, you could work to do an import directly into the database through SQL queries. That's not something that's accessible to an end user, but it's something that we have done for some of the co-permittees in Orange County. So sort of 3 ways to do it. I would only imagine doing the one way at a time that I demoed when your existing inventory is well fleshed out and you're adding a minimal number of new inventories over time, or minimal number of new BMPs to your inventory over time.
Most users have taken the approach of the bulk upload, and we currently have a team of folks at the county who is, helping the permittees bring their data into that template and then implement the bulk upload. So it's something that's the consultant team isn't really involved in that anymore, which I think is a good sign of maturation of the program, that it's becoming more self-sufficient on bringing information into the tool.
Great. The next question, I have a number still. How can this database help fill in data compliance gaps for cities that have limited to no storm drain data for engineered channels, with so many stormwater inlets within a built our urban watershed in Orange County region? It was a little kind of hard to understand that last part.
Built out.
Built out.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. How can this database help fill in data compliance gaps for cities that have limited to no storm drain data for engineered channels, with so many stormwater inlets with a built-out urban watershed in Orange County region?
Yeah. I mean, the piecing together drainage network information and knowing where your inlets are is a huge task. Most of the workflows we have in this are built on top of a network that somebody may already have. I think that a traditional field survey method of getting out with an art collector app or some other sort of survey method to go out and populate all the inlet locations, get them into an Esri geodatabase, and then from there bring them into the tool, is probably it would be the best best workflow. That's the workflow we tend to advise, because that's when it comes to just identifying points and the type of feature, that can be easily supported by a simple web app that most people have, or sorry, a simple mobile app that most people have access to. I think carrying around a web-based application to do a full inventory of inlets is probably kind of a mismatch of tools for the job. But I would acknowledge the importance of this question, which is that getting underlying assets, and that's really been an effort that the county and the county survey department undertook in collaboration with the permittees to build these underlying Esri geodatabases of storm pipes and inlets. And that's been a parallel track and sort of very much a mutually beneficial track to the web-based tool, because as Grant mentioned, we're sucking that information in. We're reading it effectively as a service into our tool, so that someone using the tool can view that, but they're not editing or manipulating that through the tool. So not totally sure if I answered your question. Feel free to follow up with me if I got off on the wrong track on that one.
Maybe we could advance to the next slide with your guys' contact information to reach out if need be. Here's another question. Can you share, this may or may not be easy enough to do, but can you share the 24 types of BMPs in the inventory that are in line with TGD+?
We can share that in response. We can share that in written form in follow-up from this call, for sure.
That would be probably easier. And then another question is, what's the basis of your pricing structure?
So the custom software development is done as professional services work for hire on an hourly basis using pretty standard consultant rates. Sitka does host this application for Orange County at a level that's close to our cost. We don't make money from hosting. We're really here to build the custom software. This is, as we said, with the open source license, you could take this technology and bid it through an RFP and see what sort of prices you would get for a firm like Sitka or others in the industry to host it for you, or if you're a larger agency with a sophisticated internal IT department, you can take and run with this on your own. But the pricing structure is professional services for customization and consulting, and then a hosting fee that is typically $1,000 to $2,000 a month is a typical range for that.
Okay, great. So I think we probably have time for two more questions. So the next one is, could the tool potentially be tailored to accommodate a trash assessment protocol other than OVTA? Is it just a matter of that alternative protocol having an analogous scoring system?
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think that's a fair assumption. The idea that you're going to be out there walking a site and wanting to define your assessment area based on selecting parcels within that site that you've walked and maybe refining the boundaries of those, those parts of the workflow would be totally transferable to any scoring system that you wanted to use. Right now, the actual selection of the score really only comes at the end, after you've collected pictures, after you've recorded notes, after you've defined your transect and your assessment area. So, swapping in a different scoring system, as part of this would be customization, but in terms of I'm thinking it would be a really minor change to the code to support a different scoring scheme. So.
Okay, this might be the last question that we'll take today. The others that I have not asked, I'll let you know that I'll get those to the presenters, and I'll make sure that they follow up with you with your personal question. But this last one that came in, is there the ability or any plans to add ability to enable upload assessment data collected via a field data collection app?
The dominant field data collection app would be Esri Collector or Survey 123, which by design syncs to ArcGIS Online, where there's a web service available to bring that data in. So it would be a really natural point of integration and pretty similar to existing integrations that we have to Esri services in the platform. We've also talked about building custom mobile applications for the field surveys. We haven't wanted to recommend an investment there yet, hoping that the web application would meet that requirement. But we're certainly interested in exploring, kind of custom mobile applications if that was a use case that was needed. But we think integrating with Esri's mobile applications is pretty viable as well.
Yeah. So I think from a practical perspective, that would mean that you set up a form carefully in the ARC collector or Survey 1, 2, 3 environment with fields that match up with fields that OC Stormwater tools would recognize. You use that form, and then it goes into a database that then can be served into Stormwater tools, so that the data you're collecting in the field via one app syncs up with parameters that are in Stormwater tools, and you're able to see that information. I think, as John mentioned, that's probably the easiest and simplest pathway forward. It's just a matter of making your parameters in your Esri form line up with the parameters in Stormwater tools, so it's viable and probably necessary in some environments where self-service is spottier, or for other efficiency reasons. There's a desire to have
more efficient.
A desire to have an offline mobile app.
Okay. This would probably be very easy to answer, but is this tool applicable outside of California? So I'll sneak that one in before I
would say that the general needs to know where your BMPs are, to know what condition they're in, and to know what progress they're making, are probably applicable in a lot of places. The really demand to know what progress you're making against targets kind of depends on how rigid your regulatory structure is and how aggressively you need to be implementing these plans and demonstrating progress. But the need to simply, inventory across different jurisdictions in a consistent format, I think, is pretty transferable. So I'm in Oregon myself. I could see jurisdictions here finding some utility in it that isn't specific to California by any means. So
great. Well, I thank you so much, Grant. I really appreciate you taking the time, and Aaron and John. It's been, I think, very informative. We had a really good turnout today. We did record today's webcast, and I will be posting that to the Sitka website, and all registrants will get an email with a link to that, and I'll also include a link to the PDF of the presentation. And feel free to share the recordings with your colleagues. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, we really appreciate your interest.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in.